Now let's take a look at making our API RESTful. So whenever we are talking about a RESTful API, all that means is that whenever we are showing information from the database, like we are here, that we'll always use a GET request. If we're going to store new information in the database, we'll use a POST request. If we're ever going to update information that currently exists in the database, we'll use a PUT request. And if we are going to remove information from our database, we'll use a delete request. So that is a RESTful API in a nutshell. It just means that whenever you've got a specific thing that you want to do to the database or information in the database, you've also got a specific request for that as well. Okay, so now let's take a look at our API routes. And of course, Laravel has two ways for us to look at our routes. The first one, which you guys should all know, is to go over to your API routes file and you can take a look at the routes over here. And you can see we've got a get route set up to fetch a specific person and use the show function in our person controller. But if you go back over to your terminal and you type in PHP artisan route list, this is going to return a list of all the routes in PHP. In Laravel, sorry. And yeah, this is going to show us our current get route setup as it is. So we've got that get route that will get a person from the person controller, and it's going to call the show method there, right? But Laravel actually has another way for us to set up all of our API routes in one function, and that is just to use an API resource. And when you do this, you don't need to add any of these arguments to the URL, and you don't need to add the function method name that you want to call over here either. Just add in the controller, right? And if you save this and you pop back over to the terminal and you run PHP artisan route list again, now you have all of the routes set up for a RESTful API. So you have an index route, which is going to call an index function, and that's just going to return a list of all the people. Then you've got a store route, which is a post request, and that's going to create a new person in the database, or that's what it should do when we set up this function. And then we also have the show method, which I've already set up in the previous videos, and that's just going to fetch information from our database and show it, but for one specific person. So it takes a person as an argument, and then we've got an argument, or we've got a route over here for updating a person, and we've got a route here for deleting a person. And each one of these will call the show, update, and destroy methods. Okay, so now let's take a look at actually setting all of these up. But the first thing that I want to do is work on the show function over here, because we've already got that set up, and I'll show you how to correctly use Laravel or Laravel as an API to return this information. So let's go back over to our project over here, and actually let's take a look at this in Postman. And you can see that right now everything is getting returned back as one object. Now when working with an API, it's sometimes easier to have this all wrapped in another JSON object or a parent JSON object called data. And that way on the front end, whatever app you're building, whether it be a front end app or a mobile app or something, it can simply just look for the one key parent, which is going to be data. So let's set that up, right? And what I want to do is set this up with a Laravel resource. So let's go back over to my terminal and let's type in, PHP artisan make resource, and let's call this person resource. And I don't know, maybe we can make this just a little bit bigger so everyone can see, right? But this is going to be a person resource. And yeah, now if we go back over to our app, our Laravel app, and we look under app HTTP resources, we should have a person resource. And what this is going to do is it's going to take everything from the database and transform it into an array. Okay, so let's go back over to our controller and let's integrate that resource into this controller. So with PHP 7, all you need to do is add in a colon, and then you can type hint what this function is supposed to be returning. And we can say that we want this function to return a person resource. If you're using PHP 7, that's going to pull that in up here. Otherwise, you just need to make sure that you add this line of code up there, right? And now let's return a new person resource and accept person as an argument. And then what this is actually doing is it's going over to our person resource, collecting everything from the database, returning it as an array, and then returning that here. And let's just document that by creating a doc block over here. So I'm gonna colon and double asterisk, and PHP Storm should document that for me. All right, so we're accepting a parameter of person and we're returning the person resource. So if I go back over to my Postman and let's send a request again, well, now everything has been wrapped in a data parent object, and that's going to be a lot easier to work with whenever you're dealing with the front end or whenever you're dealing with a mobile app that's actually fetching this data. Right. So now that we've got our GET request set up correctly, I just want to show you one more thing that we can do with resources, and that is if I go back over to my person resource, right now it's accepting or returning everything as an array, but you can also transform the person yourself by just commenting this line out and then adding your own return statement here. And this can return an array of all the keys that you want to transform. So let's do first underscore name, and this can actually return this dot first underscore name, right? And we can do the same thing for last name here as well. Now that we've done this, our array will only return these two keys. So we'll only return first and last name. If we send a request over here, you can see that that has changed. So we've only got the first and last name. But of course, if you want to add in your own functions here to transform data a little bit more, then you can actually do that as well. But for now, I think the easiest thing to do is to just go with the default array that gets returned. So I'm just going to save that as it is. Come back here and just deal with everything as it comes back from the database. Right. The next thing I want to do is return an index of all the people in our database. So to do that, I'm going to create a new function in our controller. I'm going to call this index, so public function index, because that's what Laravel has set up for us. And I think I'm going to leave this as it is right now because I want to create a person resource collection. So let's save this and let's go back over to our terminal and create that person resource collection. So PHP artisan make resource, and let's create the person resource collection, and let's just add in -- collection over here, which is going to tell Laravel that this is a person resource collection. And it just makes the resource a type of collection. That's all it does. Right, so let's hit enter. And now if we go back over to our app, we should have a person resource collection over here. And this is going to return a resource collection and not a JSON resource. So that's the difference between a collection and a normal resource. Great. So now that we've got that set up, let's take a look at returning that over here, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So this is just going to be a person resource collection, and PHP Storm will have pulled that in up here. And now we can make sure that we return a new person resource collection, but this is going to need a new argument. So it's going to need the thing that we want to return as a resource, and I am going to return the person object over here, or person class. Let's add that in. Right, and if I end that off with a semicolon, what this is going to do is just return a list of all the people within our database. So if I come back over to Postman and I try visit that root, which is actually going to be person without an argument, that should return a list of all the people. And looks like I've got an HTML error over here. So by the way, if you're ever working with Postman and you want to make sure that you're getting not HTML returned, you always want JSON returned, then you just need to go over to headers and you want to go over to the key over here, just add in accept JSON, and that's going to tell your API to always return JSON. But then you can also add in content type and set that equal to application JSON, and that's also going to tell your API that you're sending JSON to the API as well. So let's send again, and yeah, now I've got my error message returned in JSON, and it looks like we've got undefined call to members, collect resource. Yeah, okay. So it looks like we've got a problem over here. Okay, yeah, okay, I see what my mistake was. I want to call the person object, but I want to paginate it. I don't want to call that on the actual object itself. So if I fix that now and I come back over to my Postman, let's send the request again. And yes, now I should have data returned as an array, and this array is going to be a list of all the people in our database, but it is going to be paginated. So if I scroll all the way down to the bottom over here, I should eventually get to some pagination links. And yeah, this is how we will paginate through the information in our database. We'll just add in some extra information as a query string, and when we send those, we should have slightly different information. So page 1 should always return person 1. Page 2 will start from person 16. And yeah, that is just going to help us paginate through all of the information in our database. And we've also got some meta information here for our pagination, so we can see what page we're currently on, what page we're listing from, or what number we're listing from and to, and how many entries there are in our database in total. So all of that information is set up for you because you're using the person resource collection over here. Right, so now let's take a look at just documenting this, and all I'm going to do is add in my doc block. So PHP Storm is going to return that as a doc block for me whenever I just start creating that. Right, and now we know this is returning a person resource collection. And that is how we use our API for get routes. In the next tutorials, I'll show you how to store and delete. So that's all I have for you in this video, and I'll see you guys next time.
And that is the end of the video. So if you made it this far, I'm going to assume that whatever I was teaching you now was helpful. So I just want to say, if you did make it to this point of the video, subscribe and check me out on social media, especially Instagram. So all of my social media is on screen now, and I'll see you guys next time.